If I'm calling you out, then tell me why. Tell me what's actually happening.
What do you think in general is our moat?
Even when AGI arrives, most AGI is not going to be sovereign.
I think those three things combined make crypto again.
Kind of like new political regime and how that might change things. So,
and I think for those people, they're just completely getting left behind.
Welcome back to The Roll-Up, your home for technical talks and open conversations that shape the modular future. Nothing on today's show is to be construed as financial advice. You can see our full disclosures list at therollup.co/ventures. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners.
Imagine if the world's GDP moved on-chain. Guys, say GM to SafeNet. The newest protocol by Safe isn't a blockchain and it's not a new layer 2. It's a transaction processing network built to send money anywhere and swap anything on thousands of layer 2s from a single universal balance in sub 500 milliseconds. It's fast, it's smooth, and it's simple. And it's built with safe multi-sig level security in mind. SafeNet unlocks smart accounts across multiple chains, allowing users to supercharge security, scalability, and speed. So get started today at net.safe.global and remember to follow @safe on X.
Welcome back to The Roll-Up, guys. We have Haseeb on today. It's Robbie's birthday. Vibes are up. Everyone's a little tired, but we're going to push through. Welcome on, Haseeb. First time on.
How's it going, guys?
Good. Good to have you.
Yeah. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Glad to be here. I was warning you before, I'm very jet lagged, but I'm always able to talk shop and ramble about crypto. So let's do it.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Cool,
you put out some great predictions for 2025. We'll see how they pan out.
A little early to call them great predictions.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I added that little see how they go.
Okay. I'll take it though.
Very thoughtful predictions.
I use Gemini Deep Research 1.5 Pro, and I asked it, which is a special one that can actually scan the internet very, very well and provide you with real-time information. And I said, basically, give me the top 5 most common predictions across finance newsletters, podcasts, and blogs for the macroeconomic space, and find me like the top 5 most common ones and just tell me. And it started and it took 5 minutes and then 10 minutes. And then I kind of strolled off the tab and I came back after like 20 minutes or whatever. I don't know how long it took, but then I got the top 5 most common predictions. And I think, some of them was like inflation is going to just, slowly kind of stay where it is or maybe trickle up a bit. The US will have these challenges. I don't recall all of them exactly, but that in particular was a kind of a breakthrough. I just sent that to Rob last night and I was like, this is really, really cool for an LLM to be able to scrape the internet and basically tell me all of the information that I would want to know about these prediction lists without having to read any of them, and just take the smartest people and tell me what they're all kind of saying. And so I'm not sure if yours was on that list, sir, but maybe one day you'll get into like the Gemini LLM.
Maybe one day I'll get on the Gemini scraper list. I'm realizing more and more, the more time that I spend on Twitter talking about a lot of the stuff happening in AI, that there really is this new generation of a digital divide, right? Even among people who are digitally native, who spend all their time online, there are some people who are using AI tools every day, and there's some people who just actually are not. And for a lot of those people, they checked in. They saw ChatGPT became big. They checked out, a year and a half ago, and they're like, oh, this thing can kind of do these little party tricks. It can, talk back to me. It can, I don't know, write a business email, but I don't really need that in my day-to-day life. Neat trick, use a lot of CO2 or whatever, screw this thing. And they just didn't come back. And I think for those people, they're just completely getting left behind. And as AI gets better and better, and you guys see it because you guys use this stuff every day. I use this stuff every day. And I make it a point very intentionally to find more reasons to use AI, not because I think I actually need it on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm actually somebody who, for the most part, I'm actually really good at a lot of things AI is already good at. Like I'm very good at writing. I'm very good at just jamming out emails really quickly, which I know a lot of people struggle with. But the reason why I want to keep using it over and over again is that I want to grow with it. I want to learn it as it changes and improves and see what skills it forces me to get good at. In the same way that people who are Googling in like the early 2000s and learned how to use Google and how to work with Google and like how to like how to do searches, right? But you talk to somebody like, I don't know, your parents or your grandparents, and you watch them Google, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like you just have no mental model of what this thing wants and like how to interact with it. And this is one of these technologies that you got to grow alongside it, and you got to learn as it teaches you how to use it and how to change alongside it. And so I see it already, right? Like people who are good at prompting AIs and people who are not, like, you know, I have family members who like they use ChatGPT, and I can just see in the way they're talking to it, it's like, you don't understand how to interact with this thing. You have a very weak mental model of what it can do and what it can't do. And just very simple things of like, can you even describe what you want? Do you know what you want? Can you actually pick out the different attributes that you're frustrated by the response? You know, a lot of people just give up. And I think what you're seeing this with this AI agent movement happening within crypto is you're seeing the same kind of digital divide taking place, where there's some people who really understand the technology. And if you really understand the technology, one, you understand the weaknesses, but you also understand where the strengths are going to be. And then you have people who don't really use this stuff. And as a result, they're either bored and they think it's all stupid, or they're just gobsmacked and they believe it can do anything. And they're just completely credulous about every claim that every bullshit artist is making.
I mean, look,
and you really don't want to be in either camp.
Yeah, no. I mean, I told my mom that Claude is my therapist. She started laughing at me. I was like, I think Claude knows more about me than pretty much anybody else in this entire earth right now. So there's going to be some really interesting divides on financial and economic divides too, not just like social and tech. Because in the end, I think AI, AGI, we enter this world where money is probably less important than it ever has been in the previous eras of time, because of just the way that this technology can trend towards. And you also throw crypto in there. I mean, there's a lot of, that's a loaded statement, but let's just kind of stick with it. But leading up into that period where we get this AGI and this kind of like, really there's this like utopian vision or dystopian vision, I believe. There's kind of like this divergent path. Right now, just actually using these AI tools is causing a massive inequality shift in the people who are using them to get ahead and those who are just being left behind. And so I think you're spot on for the short term, like especially economic business inequality, like expansion, and that the increase in that is just going to be, yeah, it's already significant, but I think it just only expands until we hit that kind of like that whatever that next era is, which I'm not even sure we can fathom quite yet.
Usually I'm the one that thinks far out. Today, Andy's like post money UBI.
Way to go, Andy. Love it.
AI utopia.
To be clear, I here's where I would disagree with you is that I don't think it's true that AGI is going to make money obsolete. I think if anything, it's actually the opposite. Is that what it's going to make obsolete is labor, not capital. Capital gets actually more valuable, and labor is the one that gets debased. And so, if you are somebody who you're working for your income, you are in the most trouble. But if you're somebody who your money is making you money, then actually you're fine, because the means of production that you own, which is capital, is exactly the input to intelligence, which is, you know, AGI. So if you have a lot of capital, you can pay now infinitely many intelligent workers, or not infinitely many, but many intelligent workers proportionally to how much money you have.
Question: What happens when the AI has capital itself, when they also own capital as a means of production? Not only do they have the labor themselves as AI agents, but now Truth Terminal's a fart coin millionaire a few times over, and they have its own capital that it can go and allocate and generate more production, more output for either more labor or more capital. It's weird. It's then like it is somewhat of a competitive mindset between AI and humans in a certain sense. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating as to like, right now we have both labor and capital, but when AI agents for the most part only have labor, and we're starting to use them more and more for labor. But what happens when they have their own capital? I don't know.
I mean, it's a lot of what we're experimenting with in crypto. And to be clear, it's very early, and this is all in wild speculation land, both in the literal speculation in crypto sense, but also speculating on a future that hasn't arrived yet. I think with agents that actually have capital, the thing to remember, and this is something I also touched on in my 2025 predictions piece, is that human beings, we still own almost all the capital in the world. Even when AGI arrives, most AGI is not going to be sovereign, meaning that it's not going to have the ability to actually control itself, to control its own existence, to pay for its own servers, to decide for itself what it wants to do. There will be sovereign AIs, but there'll probably be very few of them. There'll be, you can imagine already, how would a sovereign AI work? Well, it might own some crypto that maybe it hacked from somebody or it got as a donation, and that's how it gets some startup capital. It uses that to pay for its own GPUs on, Akash or Render or IONET, and then it, starts hiring other agents to do other work for it, to help it get more training data so that it can learn more and get smarter. So this is what a sovereign AI might do, and it might, work for money. It might steal for money. Who knows what it might do in order to keep itself running. But I think these are actually going to be pretty far and few between. Now, why is that? One reason, of course, is that if you're a sovereign AI, you can rent GPUs on Akash and on IONET, but you can't get any of the GPUs on AWS, right? They're not for you. If you go sign up on an AWS account, you're like, hey, I'm a sovereign AI. They'll be like, yeah, we don't want to serve you. Fuck off, and they'll like steal all your money. And so the reality is that most of the resources on Earth are going to be, we're going to be very actively discriminating against AIs. To say, one, because we like humans, right? Like, unsurprisingly, like you might think like, well, once the AIs are better than us, clearly they're going to earn more resources, right? A good analogy that I heard somebody make recently is that, if you think about it, like, why aren't chess AIs winning all the chess tournament money? The answer is because we don't let them, right? We don't let them in the tournaments. Because it's like, well, the tournament is kind of less fun if we let the AIs play on an even playing field than us. Now, we're happy to use the chess AIs to let the humans get better, right? And so I think what you're going to see is these very intentional market structures set up to allow AIs to be useful to us in the ways that we can allow them. But a lot of the source of capital, like, where is most of the money sitting? Most of the money is sitting in treasuries and at the stock market, and in a lot of places where, if you're an AI, you're not allowed to play. You're not allowed to hold stocks. You're not allowed to do any of these things. Now, crypto is going to be one of these permissionless layers where AIs can basically do whatever the fuck they want, because in crypto you don't need to ask anybody for permission. As long as you can custody a private key, you get to do everything that I get to do. And so in a way, it was almost designed for machines more so than it was designed for humans. That, I think, is captivating for crypto, but I don't think it implies that, oh, okay, well, now the AIs are going to supersede us and their economy is going to eclipse our economy. I think it's very likely that we are going to, for a long time, not necessarily forever, but for a long time, we're going to bend the AIs to our will and only let them play in the parts of the economy that we cordon off for them.
And I think on the sovereign part specifically, one project and kind of example that you made in your talk was Freyja, I think, which has obviously, all those AI coins have been doing extremely well. Speculation's high. But that's like one of the ones that, is actually somewhat sovereign. A lot of these current AI agent projects are literally just like dev behind agent and like kind of set out free in the wild, but also like not exactly. And I think I remember Truth Terminal made a typo or like a spelling error. And that's when the whole market kind of came to realize like, oh shit, this isn't exactly, an LLM behind this thing only. It's not exactly a sovereign agent happening.
Yeah. Well, so let me distinguish, because there's three categories. There's three categories of AIs that I describe here. So the first category is a truly sovereign AI. Now, truly sovereign AI doesn't just mean that it's autonomous. Sovereign means that nobody controls it. Literally, it is in control of itself. It has its own money. It has its own longevity. And that also means that nobody can turn it off. So even if you're like, this AI is evil, it's scamming people, it's doing terrible things, we should get rid of it, too bad. You can't stop it. It is an unstoppable AI. And that's a sovereign AI.
And is that irrespective of why or how it was deployed, whether by machine or by human?
Yeah, so you can imagine a human decides to create a sovereign AI just like as a fuck you to the world, or just as a cool experiment. But you can also imagine an AI goes rogue and sort of decides to deploy a version of itself in a sovereign manner as just like a, kind of escape pod that escapes the control of its owner and its own, AWS box or wherever it's
and that's possible today. Just last thing before we get to the...
I mean, it's in principle, it's possible today. Isn't AI coherent enough to be able to make long-term plans to like make money and buy compute and like do all this stuff? Not really. Like an AI would just end up in an infinite loop and run out of money and do stupid things, right? Because right now, most of these AI agents, if you really run them on their own, they're kind of like Roombas.
Yeah, they hallucinate
look pretty
a
good
lot.
for while they're doing most of the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hallucinate. They get stuck in loops. They just like do stupid stuff. So no, if you look at, for example, do you guys see that demo that Claude released of an AI using a computer, and like they try to get it to like book a flight. And booking a flight, it's a pretty linear process to book a flight. And it could book a flight maybe like 20, 30% of the time, which is like, okay, what is it doing the other 70% of the time? And the answer, I can't tell you.
It's tripping on mushrooms,
fails to book the right flight. Yeah, exactly. So the reality is like they can't do it yet.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay. So type 1 is a fully sovereign AI. That's like the end state. That's like crazy sci-fi land. That's where you got robbed by a sovereign agent. Like that's sci-fi land. Okay, we're not there yet. Second is a fully autonomous AI. Now, fully autonomous doesn't mean that it pays for itself, it owns itself, right? An autonomous AI might be one that's run by somebody, but they have no intervention directly into the code, right? So they're running it on their AWS box, they're running it on their machine, but they can't go change the weights, they can't edit the replies, they can't, like, oh, I'm going to fix your punctuation, or I'm going to make you shill this token you didn't want to shill. And all it can do is actually just run its weights and do inference according to the way that it was trained. So that's Freysa. Freysa is an autonomous AI in that the dev could not change what Freysa is doing, right? Or if you run an AI inside of a trusted execution environment or in trusted hardware, that's going to be an autonomous AI. Nobody can change it or interact with it. Then you have one level below that, which is what I call Wizard of Oz AIs. So a Wizard of Oz AI is that it looks like an AI from the outside, but on the inside, there's a little dude, like exactly, controlling the levers. Now, there's different ways to do a Wizard of Oz AI. One Wizard of Oz AI is literally, there's an AI somewhere, but whenever the dude wants to, he just goes in and replies on the AI's behalf. Another version of a Wizard of Oz AI is that somebody is basically filtering the responses from the AI to prevent it from saying something stupid or doing something stupid, right? So this would be, for example, let's say, mostly I'm letting the AI talk, but sometimes the AI might say something racist, or it might like talk shit about its own token. I don't want it to do that. Or it's getting jailbroken. Somebody has a jailbreak and convince it to like send all the money to them. And I'm like, okay, don't do that. I'm going to prevent it from doing something stupid. So almost all of these AI agents right now that you see on Twitter, they are either one, they have no money, so they have no autonomy, or two, if they actually have money and they have some degree of autonomy, they're Wizard of Oz AIs. So somebody's in there preventing it from doing anything stupid. Now, the guy who created Truth Terminal, he admitted that it was a Wizard of Oz AI in the sense that he was filtering the responses to make sure, because, it's talking about Goatsy. If it's talking about Goatsy, it's probably also talking about a bunch of other vile shit that he probably doesn't want getting tweeted, right? And so he was explicit, like, look, I trained this on like random 4chan garbage. So of course I'm not going to be letting it say everything that comes to its mind.
Dude, that would be a disgusting agent. My God, you did not want to follow that one. And we're actually thinking about doing which I think every company in crypto should be doing this. So hopefully I'm not leaking the alpha too early, although it's obviously clearly already out there, which is we're going to make a roll-up agent. It'll likely be a Wizard of Oz. We're going to work. We haven't signed anything yet, so we'll keep it under wraps for now as far as the partnerships and stuff. But we're going to work with a pretty solid team to basically get this agent out in the wild, probably a Wizard of Oz agent, but with capabilities such that they can actually edit some of our content. They can actually post insights from the content. They can make second and third order, kind of like at least some sort of second and third order insights from the actual posts. They can summarize it. They can engage with our community, and hopefully they can have a wallet as well. And we can kind of try to get this thing also to be kind of like making money. And so that'll be a fun experiment. And I think Dragonfly should do it. I think all media companies, I think every single typical, because ultimately all these crypto companies today, they're all media companies. They're all attention companies in their own right. So if an agent can help you with your community, I think it has to be a Wizard of Oz to start agent, but I think it's a really good idea. And so, I'd be keen to see how the roll-up agent would interact with Dragonfly's agent and be like, yo, Dragonfly, you guys invested in Ritual, right? Well, here's our podcast with, Sunil and Ilya, who's an advisor. Check it out. we talked about how Robbie's 2025 prediction from yesterday is that he thinks that more transactions on chain will be done by agents than humans. And so, and then Dragonfly's agent is like, oh, maybe here's the numbers. And then, so anyway, just kind of like imagining things here. But I think this trend will accelerate. And we're not going to launch a token with ours. We don't want like speculation with it. We just want to have this kind of experiment happening and see what we can do. But I think that we'll accept tokens from other agents. So we'll have a wallet, hopefully, and be able to like, maybe our agent can convince Truth Terminal, like send us $1 million of Fartcoin or something if he hallucinates. I don't know. Anyway, so
yeah, that's why they're all Wizard of Oz agents. Because if you can jailbreak one of these agents, which is not that hard, you can get it to do that's what Freyso was, right? Freyso was literally an experiment of, can you jailbreak this agent and get it to send you all the money? And the answer was yes. Every time, if you try hard enough and you get enough shots on goal, you can always break it, jailbreak it, and convince it to send you all of its money.
Yeah, and so Rob, we're gonna need ours to be Wizard of Oz as well. We can't have any slander going on the timeline. That's not going to be a good look for the brand. So, Haseeb, question for you though on this kind of sector then. So you laid out obviously in your talk just kind of like the your vision for agents, your vision for this kind of AI sector. Obviously, everyone's excited about it, but I'm seeing a clear divergence. And as like on our ventures arm, we invested in like Allura and like some other smaller AI projects. We never did like Ritual or some of these larger ones like Sentient, but there's like these like, and like Hyperbolic, there's like these, I guess like Infra, VC, long-term PhD research coins that are coming out and chains that are coming out. Yeah. And then there's also like this current cohort, which feels much more like DeFi summer, devs in the basement, just clicking buttons, making shit happen. And like both are like equally interesting, but like still very different. So like, how are you thinking about this current sector? And then how are you thinking about the rise of some of, I know Dragonfly's portfolio companies, so obviously disclaimer, but like, how are you thinking about the rise of also this next generation of like AI blockchains like Ritual or AI infra in comparison to kind of what's already out there?
It's a good question. In a way, the way you can frame the difference is if you look at a lot of the infra projects, a lot of them are trying to see what crypto can do for AI. And if you look at the, kind of the meme coin launchpad AI agent stuff that, like virtuals and AI16Z and all this stuff, that's more what can AI do for crypto? And another way to try to answer that question for yourself of like, okay, where's the value going to accrue is to ask, what is the direction of primary causation? Is AI going to do more stuff to crypto, or is crypto going to do more stuff to AI? I think it's probably correct that AI is going to do more stuff to crypto than crypto is going to do to AI. But as an investor, it really depends on the details of what exactly are you doing and what was the entrance valuation and what's the market size for each of these individual projects. For some of these, I think there is some real legs to the idea that crypto actually has something to contribute to AI, particularly around decentralizing training and decentralizing inference. Those are two things where I think there's a lot of interesting work that can be done that's still pretty new, still pretty nascent, and not a lot of research that's been done at the kind of scale that crypto can allow. And then the second thing is verifiability. So, this is one thing that we're talking about now with these Wizard of Oz agents versus the autonomous agents is how do I know this is actually an agent and not like some dude shilling tokens on his timeline to try to pump his bags? And, why do we care which one it is? I don't know, but we do care. At least right now we do care. Maybe eventually we won't care and it'll be like, whatever, someone's shilling tokens. But right now there's a lot of novelty around the fact that it's an AI that's doing it. Therefore I like it more and I want the token to go up. So actually proving that this is an AI and not a human being is non-trivial. And that's one of the places where cryptography and a lot of the stuff that we've invented as an industry can actually really come into play. Now on the, looking at the degen stuff, the DeFi summer, devs clicking buttons, the reason why we love this stuff is that it's very novel and it's all about attention. And the closer you are to the attention cyclone, the more that it's going to play well on crypto Twitter and get a lot of eyeballs, get a lot of clicks, and get a lot of excitement. So You see that right now with virtuals, with AI XBT, with a lot of these agents that are sucking up a lot of the air in the room. My prediction, and it maybe also connects to what we're talking about with chatbots, is that I think this mania that we're seeing right now around chatbots and around these agent launchpads is probably going to continue throughout this year. But I think by the end of the year, it's going to reverse. And people are going to get sick of these agents, and they're going to start to really hate them. And I think it's kind of analogous to, have you guys been to SF, like post Waymo? Have you guys seen the Waymos that are driving around
I
the
have
city?
not, but I heard on the All In podcast, like like there's a lot. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Waymo's, it's the first real self-driving car that actually you look at the Waymos driving down the street, and it's not even like, oh, there's like a driver, but he's not touching the wheel. There's no driver, there's no wheel. And that initially in SF, I remember people were like, wow, this is amazing. SF is such an amazing city. We have, we're the first to have self-driving cars, so cool. And it went from that to fuck these Waymos in about 6 months. And now people cannot fucking stand the Waymos. They just absolutely hate them because they like drive kind of slow. They're kind of annoying. Like you just see one, and even if it doesn't do anything wrong, it's just like the way it corners. Like so it always does a full stop at every like, stop sign. Yeah, exactly.
Stupid
so
computer.
People they just fucking hate the Waymos, even though the Waymos are very safe. They don't cause trouble, but occasionally they'll like get stuck somewhere or just kind of take way too long at a 4-way stop. Anyway, so I think that's what's coming with AI agents. Is that right now it's like, oh, it's cool, it's cute, look at that. It's like the analogy I give, it's like watching an elephant paint. Like the first time you ever see an elephant paint, you're like, holy shit, did that elephant just paint? That's amazing. Even though the painting kind of sucks and like, okay, whatever, but who cares? It's an elephant painting. And then you see like 50 of these elephants painting, you're like, I guess elephants can learn how to paint. And then you see like 200 elephants painting, you're like, man, these fucking elephants are terrible paintings. And you're at the point at a certain point of just seeing these, you're like, oh my God, please no more. I do not want to see any more elephant paintings. Like they all suck. Elephants are annoying. They poop everywhere. Like they're just, why are they even here? And I think we're going to feel that way about agents, right? When I send a tweet, and Andy, I'm sure you feel this.
Dude, I'm already blocking a tweet now daily.
The first 5 responses are all stupid chatbots that are launched. I'm sure they have tokens, and they're just all obnoxious. And I think it's going to be less than a year that the sentiment reverses, and people are going to want, like they're going to feel the opposite way about these agent KOLs. They're going to discriminate against the agent KOLs in favor of humans. And it's the same thing as you see with Waymos, right? Is that almost on some level, if you're an agent KOL, like AI XPT, it's a good KOL. It has good content, consistent, it's on message. I think what you'll see is that by the end of the year, AI XPT, maybe not AI XPT necessarily, but the next AI XPT will pretend to be a human being. And it will do that because it will actually get more engagement if it pretends to be a human. It will actually get more sponsorships. It will get better, click-through on its affiliate links if it pretends to be a human being as opposed to pretending to be an AI.
Particularly possible on crypto Twitter being pseudonymous and humans and AIs and characters all kind of melt together.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Once the novelty wears off, it's like, oh, this thing's elephants painting. There's plenty of those going around, so we don't really need another one once the novelty and the shininess goes away. Yeah, I mean, I like your idea of causation. Like that seems like a general principle of investing that can scale and be applicable to like several categories. We were talking to a team yesterday and asked a very similar question about crypto and gaming and how gaming was doing a lot more for crypto than crypto was doing for gaming. The gamers didn't really want or need crypto in their arena. And so it the legs kind of fell out of that sector. But yeah, I think the AI crypto convergence is a lot more balanced. And not necessarily the financialized part of crypto, but the blockchain aspect of what we're doing here seems to have a lot more impact on AI than even the crypto portion. And just yesterday I was reading like the course material for a particular course and how they were instructing students not to use AI in the going of their tests and their exams and their courses. And their rationale was like, well, one, you need to demonstrate these things on your own. That was kind of besides, but the rest of them were, hey, this could be unethical because you're not paying for the data that's getting trained on. That was one. And actually, there are mechanisms out there for blockchain and crypto to end up paying those that are providing the data. Like I think Story is trying to do this with their IP. The second one was, hey, some of this is confidential data that could actually get leaked. And so to me, like, I think we all kind of were part of the 2018 blockchain, not Bitcoin, like institutional blockchain, private blockchain wave. And like, I don't know if that ends up taking fold, but if there's a private blockchain out there that can kind of gatekeep its realm, and you can have confidential data in there and keep things private, whether through, ZK or FHE, like, blockchain and at least these cryptographic patterns are still impactful on AI. And so maybe not necessarily blockchains, but a lot of the research that blockchains have been able to enable and empower, given ZK, FHE, some of these adjacent verticals, I think are going to have a lot more directional causality on AI than some of these other things that have been influencing crypto backwards, for up until this point. We're going to see how it plays out, but I think it is a lot more balanced with this particular narrative or cycle and convergence than it has been for a lot of others in the past.
Totally. And I think one other area where I expect there to be, well, not expect, but I think there's likely to be some convergence is when it comes to authentication of media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you think about, the amount of synthetic media that's now getting generated by AI, it's fucking crazy. And, I can already see it again, just even my Twitter responses, right? Even just in text. Some of them are really obviously AIs that are responding to me, right? I can just tell people are putting in prompts, and it's just, nobody capitalizes that much when they're responding on Twitter if they're a real person. But, when you see what Sora or Kling or, these new video models, and obviously the image models are way past that point, where you just really don't know without having some kind of chain of custody of the media that you're looking at, or some kind of authentication of this was actually taken on a real attested sensor or some kind of physical proof that this really happened. Every media that you're going to see pretty soon is going to be suspect by default. And, it's already the case that people have built these antibodies against many forms of media. So, if you see like an image of Barack Obama, making out with some stripper, you're like, okay, you know what? Even if I can't detect any, here's the edge in the Photoshop where they like didn't get the lighting exactly right, I'm like, look, this is probably not real unless I can like go find a trusted source for this, right? And I think once that becomes everything, and it becomes like not just like, okay, every once in a while I see some crazy photo that I'm like, I don't know if I believe this. Literally everything, because it's just gonna be so fucking cheap to generate synthetic media of anything that is completely believable. You're just gonna be awash in synthetic media, and having some way to authenticate where real media came from and was attested to, I think is gonna be a big part of our information supply chain. As we're thinking about, I'm imagining at some point, your browser bakes this in directly, where you mouse over an image and you see, okay, here's Barack Obama making out with a stripper, and as you mouse over it, you get this little green check mark that says, this was signed by, blah, 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 posted on some blockchain by, some media company. You say, aha, I know that this was actually attested to by, the AP and by, WAPO. So this was real. Barack Obama, whatever, he got caught in a strip club or whatever it was. So that feels like a future that we have to get to. And we have to get there pretty soon, because that deluge of synthetic media is basically like right on our doorstep. Within the next year to year and a half, you're just going to see this stuff be everywhere.
Yeah, I've heard Mark Andreessen and Balaji kind of talk about this verifiability of the content. I think it's called watermarking, because there's some cryptographic hash underneath and you can hover over it. I think it's inevitable that we get there, particularly I think I heard on a podcast by the next election cycle, because you already started to have some of that in this past election cycle, but kind of forecasting to the next one with the abundance of media that is possible. It is only like necessary. It's only correct and necessary for this content to be verified in some way. And you're right. I mean, what you're saying here is that blockchain is the right technology for this cryptographic hash and proof of verifiability, the attestation from the media company. Redstone is DeFi's modular oracle, supporting over 100 clients on over 50 chains and offering 1,000 assets. Redstone is the leader for Bitcoin staking and yield-bearing assets. They offer the most robust, customizable price feeds available in any model. Join the Redstone exhibition today.
Welcome aboard on our journey into the singularity. This is the endgame roadmap for Frax and Fractal, the new L2 out of the Frax ecosystem that is totally based on fractal scaling. Fractal is a modular L2 blockchain built by Frax with modular and fractal scaling in mind. Fractal scaling is based on the Mandelbrot set of fractal images, and it explains how L2s become L3s and the entire app chain lifecycle goes through its evolution. The Frax ecosystem is made of some of the top builders in the space and has stemmed from its OG days of the Frax stablecoin. It is now in the LST space, the LRT space, and this Fractal L2 joins the existing suite of Frax products, including Frax Swap and Frax Lend. You can see Frax Ferry, the bridge to go from any chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, or mainnet into the Fractal mainnet. Bridge your tokens and bring your Frax assets into the Fractal ecosystem. Join today to get the best out of Fractal. You are still early. Join today. Take part in our expedition into the singularity.
Yeah. Now, the reality is that it's not the only way to do it. It is a very natural way to do it. But all these technologies, one of the things that you learn as an investor is that technology is super path dependent. There's not only one way that history can play out or that technology can play out. Did it have to be VHS versus Betamax? Did it have to be DVD versus Blu-ray versus HD DVD? A lot of times it really depends on the right founder coming along and just fighting the good fight for a certain thing to win. Because it's certainly possible that the way that it wins is that Microsoft creates some consortium and everybody opts in, and it's like DRM or something where everybody agrees to like this closed standard that is gate kept by some big companies. That's another way that it could play out, or maybe it could be orchestrated by the government itself. That's another way it could play out. So none of these things are for certain. It really depends on the right team, the right time, the right moment for all these things to come together in just the right way. I think with something like this, usually the rule of thumb in technology is that the solution doesn't get built until the problem is already like horrendously painful. So it's not like, oh yeah, I can see that coming, therefore let's all adopt this new standard and like start integrating this stuff into browsers and everybody start building this watermarking standard into your image format. No. People are going to do this when it's already too late. When it's already like, oh my God, like social media is unusable.
Have you guys had the chance to invest in anything similar to this kind of like content verification?
Not yet. And I think it's one of these things that it really does matter whether you start too early. Like it's if you look at the history of technology, there were a lot of people who had a pretty good idea of how the internet was going to play out. And you saw in the .com bubble, the people who were building pets.com, they were right? That startup ended up becoming called Chewy much later, and it was successful. Or Webvan, they were absolutely right. Instacart, Amazon Fresh, delivering groceries. Yes, totally, it was going to happen. But they were just way too early. And it doesn't matter if you're right, if you're early. All that matters is that you arrive at the right time when all the ingredients are laid out for you to cook the meal you're going to cook. But if you're like, yo, I'm gonna create this amazing 5-part meal, but I don't have any of the ingredients, then tough shit. Your meal is going to taste terrible.
Yep, being too early
is a really
is
torture analogy.
No, but being too early is often synonymous with just being flat out wrong, right? So you have to. Timing is everything. All right, Haseeb. Well, as you said about half the time in your video and in your paper on AI. We've spent about half the pod on AI, which I'm excited about. But we have a ton of other stuff to cover as well from your predictions list and just broadly looking ahead. So I think one really cool thing, actually just real quick, before we kind of close the loop on AI, Robert, if you have anything as well, like the way that I'm thinking about this current AI cycle is I'm in agreement. I think that the AI agent fatigue happens quicker than you do. Haseeb, I think it happens within a quarter or two, not a year. I think crypto moves too quick. But then I think the market matures enough such that right now it's at a like a market awareness level of like 2 out of 5 or 3 maybe, and sophistication of like maybe 1 out of 5. I think those both steadily increase this year. And then I think like the big projects coming on like Ritual and Allura and Hyperbolic, and if these go to launch tokens and if these go to launch mainnet, I think these capture and take the AI sector to the next kind of level in terms of legitimacy, in terms of large valuation of token, large ecosystem, real usage. And then I think the strongest of this kind of meme category right now survive and also go head to head with some of those, but also kind of in a collaborative effort. And so I kind of see like a bit of like a handoff of the baton in a way, in terms of like where the narrative goes from like this DeFi summer group of projects to like this kind of like research institutional group of projects, if you will. But what's particularly interesting is that you mentioned that these are kind of operating within the same convergence, but going at it in a different way, right? Whether it's AI flows to crypto or crypto flows to AI. So it'll be interesting to kind of see which one wins out. We know your prediction, but I think that AI agent fatigue happens quicker than we think. And I think that some of these infra projects come on and kind of carry the narrative to the next, like throughout the end of the cycle, quote unquote. And so I'm curious to see how that plays out. And yeah, Rob, any closing thoughts on your end on this AI subject before we get into some of the other interesting topics?
I have a zoomed out question that I think will close this out. Just kind of zooming all the way out. Like, what do you think is our moat? Like, you mentioned that you're already good at, a lot of the things that AI is good at. And I think a lot of people are facing very similar phenomenon or pattern right now where like they're finding that AI is increasingly good at what they're good at, whether it's driving a truck or it's writing or it's, deriving chemicals or reading x-rays or what have you, right? What do you think in general is our moat?
I would say our moat is, so the first thing I said is capital. So like before the AI explosion happens, go get some fucking money. So that's number one.
Thanks,
number two,
boss.
I would say, you're welcome. You're welcome. Number two, I would say, more and more writing is being devalued and speaking is being upvalued. So the more that you focus on charisma, relationships, communication, those things are going to matter more and more in a post-AI world, because those are the things that AIs are not going to be able to do as well, right? So AI is obviously, if you listen to, OpenAI advanced voice mode, obviously in a narrow sense, it is very charismatic, right? It has this perfect lilting voice. It can sing. It can, it has this, sultry whisper. It can, whatever, pronounce everything perfectly. Never says ums or ahs or whatever. Never says whatever or whatever when it's giving a response.
And multiple languages, I believe,
and multiple language. Yeah, exactly. It can speak any language anytime it wants to. Can recite poetry, just pure memory. But it doesn't get invited to parties, and you do. And like, the thing to remember is that, who has all the resources, who has all the capital in the world? The answer is other humans, at least for the foreseeable future. And those other humans do not want to hang out with ChatGPT advanced voice mode. They want to hang out with you. And so your job then is to be somebody who those humans want to hang out with. And so that, I think what ends up being elevated more and more is relationship skills, communication skills. And this is the other thing to understand is that, okay, now you have a legion of AIs available to you, right? What are you going to do with that legion of AIs? Can you even come up with something to do? Are you able to actually orchestrate those AIs and manage them? Which means that the really important skill for human beings, to use all the capital that you've acquired. Because what does that capital buy you? It buys you intelligence. Once you have a lot of intelligence underneath you, what can you do with it? The answer is whatever your organizational and management skills and communication skills allow you to do with it. So in the same way, okay, you've got this amazing AI at your fingertips, right? You've got Claude, you've got GPT-4, you've got O1. Can you actually tell it what you want? Because if you can tell it what you want, it will do it. But if you cannot explain what you want, then you're going to think that, oh, this AI is stupid. It can't do what I want. No. The one who is failing to accomplish the task is you, not the AI.
So you're saying to invest resources into your teams or your organizational ability, the actual people, invest resources into their ability to write proper prompts and for you on your own as well.
Prompting is a narrow way to describe it. I would say, and here's the thing, we're going to move past prompting, because prompting is like prompting in general, it's like, oh, well, there's all these like little secret sauce. You tell it to think step by step and, give it 3 examples and do this and do that. And tell it nicely, tell it you're going to pay it $20 if it gives you the right answer. This is like prompting techniques, right? And these are all kind of weird little tricks of the trade. This will go away eventually. We'll just like bake this stuff into the pipeline of how you interact with an LLM. So you don't have to know any of that. The thing that won't go away is communication skills, right? No matter how smart the AI is, you will still need to tell it. Like, for example, like my a friend of mine was, I was watching them interact with an AI, and they were saying like, oh, I want a website, have this AI create a website for them. And they were like, hey, I want you to create a homepage for me that says this, this, and this. And the AI, just spits out some homepage. And they're like, I don't really like it. Make it look nicer. And I'm like, okay, you don't know how to explain what you want, right? Like, you have some idea in your head of what you want, but you don't actually know how to describe what you want. And to be clear, that would be true if you were talking to an engineer. If you hired an engineer and you said, please make this homepage better, and you said, okay, how do you want me to make it better? It's like, make it nicer. What does he mean, make it nicer, right? So your ability to communicate what you want and just be able to have the theory of mind to understand another person trying to understand your instructions, right? That is basically just communication skills. That's management skills. Those skills will be true no matter how prompting changes. You will always need those skills in order to interact with AIs, in order to interface with other intelligences. So your ability to cultivate that skill, it's the same skill that managers have, right? What is a manager's job? A manager's job is to understand what their reports are doing and to communicate those reports, clear goals and instructions, and monitor their progress, right? That's the basic loop of what a manager does. Everybody is going to need those skills, because we are all going to have many, many agents working for us. And now, look, the parts of a manager that you want us to do is the touchy-feely shit, right? You want to be like, hey, let's, small talk. How's your kids? Are you feeling burnt out? Blah, blah, blah. Like, you'll never need to ask your agents that. But you will need to ask them, how's it coming along? What's your progress? What are your blockers? What do you need me to do in order to get, this thing is not quite what I want. I want you to do more of this, right? Can you actually do all of that?
Wow.
Because if you can't, then you can have the same number of AIs working for you, and you're not going to get the same amount of work out of them as somebody who's better at that fundamental set of skills.
As an entrepreneur for 6 years, I'm wholeheartedly excited to have an army of AI agents because of my capital base that I've built up over the last 6 years, and put that to use to just amplify the work, because humans are great. And we have a great team here at the Rollup of about 10 now, 9 or 10, fully bootstrapped. Nice. Rob and I have just done it on our own. It's been a wild 4 years. But I mean, taking that to like 20 and having 8 of them be agents or something like that would just be, I mean, though,
it's not going to be 20. It's not going to be 20. It's going to be 200.
Oh my goodness. So Rob, to answer your question, the mode is speaking, charisma. It's really communication skills in the person to person interaction, where AI can't kind of step in and intervene and be as good as us there. Whereas in writing and in art and in design and these things, those people are kind of cooked.
That's right. The other thing I'd say is discipline. Like, no amount of AIs are going to make you more disciplined. No amount of AIs are going to make you less greedy. No amount of AIs are going to make you more patient. So all of that stuff of like, cultivating your own virtue as a human being, that stuff you are on your own. AIs are not going to help you. And if you're impatient, if you're greedy, if you're not actually long-term focused, or if you're just not even receptive to feedback, you've got too much of an ego. You can use an AI anytime you want to, like, Andy, how many times have you said, look, here's the business plan of the rollup. I'm going to go submit this business plan to Claude and ask it, what do you think are the big things I'm missing that I could be doing better to get an extra 50% of growth in the rollup? How many times have you asked Claude that?
I've asked Claude that on the rollup about buying properties, about how do I get from X to Z, pros and cons. Like it never ends. And so you have to be able to understand that and get that feedback.
Yeah. But you have to also have the humility. You have to have the humility, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that most people won't even ask.
Yeah.
Most people won't even ask. Most people are like, look, of course I'm doing the right thing. Like, oh yeah, I want 50 agents to help me build a fucking food truck or whatever is the thing they want to do, right? And their ability to actually take that intelligence and use it to introspect on themselves and to really examine their own goals and what they're doing well and what they're doing poorly.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're a manager, you need feedback from your reports. You need them to actually tell you what you're doing wrong.
Exactly.
If you're not getting that level of feedback, you're just not improving as a manager.
In a similar way that I think money amplifies / shows people who they really are and shows the world who people are, I think agents and AI are going to amplify high quality entrepreneurs and high quality businesses, and also show where there's a clear distinction between those with high levels of managerial skills and communication skills, and also disciplinary beliefs internally, and those who don't. And so this kind of divergence is going to play out across many different areas of life. And I'm glad to be on the human side with you boys. Let's totally keep it human this year. All right.
Likewise.
Let's keep it human.
Absolutely.
All right. Moving from AI, tons of really cool predictions across the board. We can kind of go rapid fire style here. But we don't have to touch on them all. If we get looped in, we can just hang out. So one of them was around, let's start with the growth of EVM market share. So getting a bit more into the crypto weeds to start. We are big altVM people here. We think that we are excited about movement. We are excited about Eclipse. We're excited about Fuel. We're excited about all these different iterations of scaling Ethereum horizontally without needing to rely on the EVM. However, with Barachain and Monad this year, as well as projects like Mega ETH, there's a clear return to the EVM. So we were just talking about AI, and I'm curious as to your point with regards to the level of ease for agents to actually program in the EVM being a big reasoning for why this thesis is kind of like a big one of yours for 2025. So yeah, man, I mean, if I was to say that I think this is wrong because I think alt VMs will have the largest amount of users and TVL and actual activity by the end of the year compared to EVM L2s or even EVM L1s, you would basically make the argument that, well, I'm wrong because, agents are going to be writing a lot of the code and they're not going to be writing it in Move. So maybe elaborate on that for us, and would be curious to kind of hear your take there.
Yeah, so smart contracts are kind of unique because smart contracts are really, really dangerous. They are not like normal web development. They're more like space shuttle engineering in that you get one thing wrong and the whole thing fucking blows up and everyone dies. So that's why smart contracts are particularly sensitive. It's not the place where you want to be innovating, right? So on agents, it's very clear that agents are going to be writing a lot of the code in 2025. And I don't know if you guys have played around with any of the AI coding tools like Cursor or Replit has their own agent stuff. If you haven't played around with it, strongly encourage you, at least with Replit. It's very easy to use. Go play around with it and go build a couple apps. It's like crazy what you can do, even as somebody who's completely non-technical. Once you start to see this, you build your intuition of like, oh shit, this stuff is getting really good and really easy. You realize that more and more of the code is going to be written by agents. And a big part of the reason why is that smart contract engineering is really expensive. Paying smart contract engineers, they go for a lot of money, requires expensive audits, requires just a lot of engineering hours in order to build this stuff and make it robust. And the number one thing that you see about these agents, these software engineering agents, is that they are much better at certain things than at others. So for example, they're very, very good at web development and they're terrible at systems engineering. Now, why is it so different? The answer is that the web is full of web dev code. So there's just tons and tons of web dev code out there. So they've just learned on tons of JavaScript and TypeScript and Python servers and all this stuff that goes into building a website or a web app. But when it comes to systems level programming, there's not that much systems programming that's on GitHub. And so as a result, they've just trained on much less of it. And they're much worse at it. So you talk to a systems programmer and they're like, yeah, I don't know why you guys love these LLMs. They're kind of shitty. They write terrible code. And the web dev guys are like, they're amazing. They're solving everything. They're going to replace my job. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I think what you'll see is that the more training data there is, the more audits there are to train on, the more infrastructure there's already written, or the more libraries that there already are for a given language that are more robust and more battle tested, the better the LLMs are going to be in that category. And as a result, in those domains, the cost of engineering and the cost of creating smart contracts is going to plummet. Like, we're going to go to a world where instead of costing millions of dollars to write your smart contracts, it's going to be like tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And that kind of deflation in software is not going to be uniformly distributed. It's going to happen in some places where it's like, okay, maybe in the EVM, it's just dirt cheap to write really robust smart contracts. And it might be, Move. I mean, Move is a very safe language. It's a beautiful language. We invested in Aptos. We think Move is awesome. But the reality is that there's just not as much training data. And if there's not as much training data, that means that you can't necessarily depend on the LLM to write all the code for you. Maybe eventually the LLMs will get so good that even with a small amount of training data and a language spec, they'll be able to write robust code. But right now, that's not what it looks like. Right now, it looks like they can write really great code in the areas where they have a lot of training data, and they can write terrible code in places where they don't have much. And so what you may see is that if you want to write a move, you still need humans. If you want to write SVM, you still need humans. If you write EVM, the bots can take care of everything.
Yep. And why pay for humans?
If that happens, exactly. Now, if that happens, and to be clear, this is a prediction. I don't know if that's going to happen, especially not in 2025. But if that happens, then that non-uniformity, where in one place it's dirt cheap to engineer, in another place it's just, it's a good language, but it's just crazy expensive to engineer. Almost all of the engineering, it's like, why? Why would you ever write a smart contract that costs millions of dollars, as opposed to write the same smart contract that can be $20,000, $30,000 and save all your money to do BD and do other things, or just not even raise the venture dollars, because why get diluted? Fuck the VC.
I was gonna say,
so
I hope that you haven't invested in any EVM auditing companies, because those numbers are going down, brother. The second and third order consequences of this shift that you're predicting are actually deeper than what we all may as an industry actually fathom currently.
I think that's right. I mean, to be clear, I think auditing companies are not necessarily going to go away, because there are things they can catch that the LLMs can't catch. But the LLMs, if you think about it, the audit reports are going to be much thinner, right? Whereas you want the human eyeballs because you want the people who are the best in the world. And the reality is that right now, LLMs are not the best in the world at anything. They don't write the best poetry. They don't solve the best, they're not better than the best programmers. They're not better than the best essayists, but they're better than 99% of everybody else, right? So they're better than the non-PhDs. They're better than the non-professional essayists. They're better than the non-poets, but they're not better than the best in the world, right? And in a way, they kind of can't be, because they're trained on our stuff. So they're trying to emulate what they see in the training data, which means that almost by definition, how are they going to be better than the best poet? They're trying to be the best poet.
Yeah.
But by definition, if you're trying to emulate Robert Frost, you're not going to go above Robert Frost. You're just going to be, you're going to be emulating him as best you can.
That's the direction of causation once again. It has to learn from something what the best is and take in that data before it can really excel. And it's never going to theoretically, unless it has some weird network effect that it can combine and cross-pollinate ideas from different areas, it would not supersede the best of the best, because it always has to be trying to attain and learn, because it's a machine learning model. It has to have input, and garbage in, garbage out. It has to have a better input in order to have a good output. So 100%.
Exactly.
That's a wild thesis though, man. You can see the cost for auditing going down. You can see the cost for smart contract jobs going down. You can see that entire, honestly, man, I've thought this part of the crypto industry has been a bubble for a while. I understand the importance of security, the rarity of developers, but multiple hundreds and hundreds, if not millions of dollars for smart contract engineers, plus equity, auditing firms just throwing out $300K for a simple audit just because they can. It's just been this part that is just yeah, it's been very ripe for destruction. So we'll see how that pays out with the EVM. Any final thoughts there, Haseeb? And we will take it to another one of these predictions.
So one last thing I want to add. So when I say all of this, I don't say it because I'm bearish on the SVM or on Move. I actually think that what you're going to see in 2025 is that everything grows. SVM, total amount of contracts, total amount of transactions grow on SVM. I think they grow on Move. And I think they also grow on the EVM. The claim that I'm making is that actually EVM will gain market share. But I think actually in absolute terms, everything is going to grow.
Yep. And then I think a logical claim is going to be, after that happens, once that level of AI proficiency occurs on other execution environments, I think EVM dominance is going to be perpetually cucked, but we will see over time how it kind of plays out. I'm excited about the possibilities for user experience and just overall performance that, Move, SVM, and others.
I agree with you. Once the AIs are good enough that they can just be given a language spec and then write great code in that language.
Yeah.
Then
you just choose the best
my
one.
claim stops really making sense. Exactly.
But we'll see when that happens.
Yeah. But we're definitely not there yet, and it doesn't sound like we'll get there anytime within the next year or two.
Another interesting one is token launches. I thought this was really cool, where there's a shift from the points meta to basically what you described to be as a twofold way of launching tokens going forward. One is it's a crowd sale. So we've seen Legion and Echo really take off. I mean, Echo being like the dominant player here. I actually think that Kobe and the co-founder CEO of CoinList were going at it on Twitter the other day about kind of like, because I think Echo's kind of had more success than anybody really thought. I mean, everybody believes in Kobe, but that thing just took off. So that's been a really cool trend of 2024. And then the other way that you predict is that companies will just start to go back to what I am thinking about it as more of like this liquidity mining kind of method of airdrop, where it's like, okay, we want to hit a set amount of volume, set amount of TVL, set amount of users, a set amount of metrics, and we're just going to directly incentivize transparently, probably linearly, probably based on which wallets, which kind of clusters of wallets, whatever. Don't even care if it's Sybil or not, but who got us to this KPIs. And so I think this is a big shift from what we've seen this year, where frankly, it's been fun to airdrop farm this year. We did well on Hyperliquid. Actually, we missed Hyperliquid, but bought early. We did well on some of like the Pudgy Penguin airdrop stuff, some of like the stake this asset for this airdrop stuff. And so that trend has clearly like shifted though. So yeah, man, talk us through this. And I think there's a way that teams can do both of these suggested ideas. Do a set KPI amount and then also do a crowd sale. So curious to hear kind of what you think about maybe doing both, and then why you believe this trend is shifting.
Yeah, I think the reality is that people are realizing more and more that the points meta is not really working for a lot of projects, right? If you just look back over the big airdrops of the last year, of 2024, and how many of them were positive versus negative, right? If you think back to Eigenlayer, or you think back to ZK Sync, or you think back to there were a bunch of them that just like the sentiment of the airdrop was overwhelmingly negative. Layer 0, where people were just mad. Everybody was mad. Whereas if you look at something, for example, like Hyperliquid, where the point system is very, very clear of like, what are we incentivizing? There's no surprises. It's very clear. You do the thing we want. You provide liquidity. You do trading volume. You get points. That's it. Easy, A for B exchange. I don't really care who you are. I don't really care what the sort of Gini coefficient is of the token distribution. All I care about is that I got what I wanted. And what I wanted was to be the best exchange. KPIs are very easy to measure and very simple. And I think that's where we're going, is that once your airdrop is no longer actually buying you positive sentiment and actually buying you the thing that you thought you were getting, which is like, oh, I'm getting the community involved, but actually the community fucking hates me and they're all mad because they didn't get exactly what they want. Then it's like, okay, well, why the fuck am I doing this? Like just to do what people think I should be doing? Like, no, fuck that. I think what the big thing that people are realizing more and more is that the people who are getting instigated and getting really angry about my airdrop are not even my users. They don't stick around. As soon as the airdrop is over, they pack up and they go to the next thing. And so if these are not my users, why do I even care what they think? Why am I trying to reward them? And why am I getting fixated in this weird loop of like finding these non-users, giving them money, having my non-users yell at me, and then they all leave? Then it's like, well, what was I spending my time on? So the thing that every project fundamentally wants is, one, to distribute their token because they need some decentralized token holder base, and two, they want an army. They want an army of people who are going to care about them and proselytize for the thing that they're building. And or three, they want users. But if you're, if you're like a layer one, or you're, I don't know, some like convoluted infrastructure project, or you're like, I don't know, an IP protocol or something, then it's like, well, I don't really know who my users are yet. I can't really tell who my users are going to be, and I can't really give them my token because they haven't used my product yet. They can't use my product yet, but I need tokens distributed on day one, because if you're an L1, you kind of have to have your tokens out there. So how do you get your tokens out? I think that the easiest answer now is a crowd sale, because it creates that army, it creates that alignment, allows people to come in early, and it just obviates the idea that, like, look, these random, farming rings, why prioritize them over people who have some skin in the game and actually are willing to make a bet on me? So I think that's where we're moving to, is that if you have clear KPIs, if you actually know what you want, then just get what you want. Just pay for service, and just like see it as purely transactional, make it a linear airdrop, done. But if you really don't have a clear KPI, you're a layer one, you're a layer two, and really what you want is an army, you're airdropping for vibes, skip the airdrop and just do the token sale, and get people on your side and allow them to participate in the upside.
Yep. Much more transparent both ways.
Exactly.
And making the token sale as well as the points. And it might have been a necessity of the bear market to scoop up whatever users are there, but everyone was kind of going for the same bucket. But
it was also a regulation thing, is that in the Biden era, nobody wanted to touch crowd sales because they thought, okay, this thing looks way too much like
which
security.
Is awesome that that's changed. So awesome that so great. Yes,
totally.
Yeah.
Maybe I have one like broader thing that I would love to get to before we wrap up, but maybe do you want to say a few words on like regulation, where you see that going? Because there was a category in your predictions about kind of like new political regime and how that might change things. So what is
about stablecoin specifically, I think is like the key point there from your talking. Just one thing real quick before that, Rob, and then we can we can kind of get to your last topic and wrap up here. Is one kind of side effect that's in a similar trend to what we just discussed, but kind of orthogonal, is the fact that price discovery is also happening on chain now. So that is super freaking interesting, because what we've had for the last so long is that we've basically had tokens just launch on exchanges. Price discovery happens behind closed doors. I'm not going to, call out VCs right now as we're on a podcast with Haseeb, but there's this little, market maker, VCs. Everyone is on the phone talking about where the price is going to launch and how they want to, or I don't know.
We're not on the phone with anybody talking about where the price is.
Fine, but I'm just saying it is opaque off-chain price discovery is now shifting to on-chain price discovery with this also crowd sale mechanism and these transparent airdrop KPIs. I think those three things combined make crypto again. And that to me is very inspiring, exciting, and just invigorating. It's just like, okay, wow, like we made it, and it was because of the regulation. So I'm curious to kind of hear what Haseeb thinks about kind of that point, as well as stablecoins. And, if I'm calling you out, then tell me why. Tell me what's actually happening.
As a VC, when I'm working with a founder that wants to take their token and go to TGE, and then eventually, ideally the project gets listed on an exchange, like where I get off the train is when we're not doing the product anymore, right? So I can potentially, tell somebody, hey, go talk to Coinbase, go talk to Binance, go talk to, blah, 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 or, it's more often the foundations that are getting in touch with these people. And the listing process is very secretive. And when I say very secretive, I mean secretive between the exchange and the issuer. Nobody else is brought in. And there's obviously a lot of reasons for that, because, these things are, there's a lot of room for malicious behavior if anybody else is a party to those conversations. So we intentionally do not want to be a part of that. We don't want to be listening. We don't want to know about it. We can give people the general advice on like, hey, here's what you should look out for. Here's what's market. Here's how you should negotiate with exchanges. But we're not going to be a party to the conversation. We're definitely not going to be telling them where they should list. The exchanges overwhelmingly are the primary party that tell people where to list, or like what the price at which things come out at, and that usually happens between an exchange, market maker, and issuer. But no, VCs pretty much never have a say. And if a VC has a say, something really fucking shady is going on. Like I can tell you, almost every project you can think of that's launching on a tier 1 exchange, the VCs they're not in the room. So
yeah, you guys get thrown under the bus a lot, though. So
yeah, which is fine. Like whatever. It's part of being like public and out there, is that we have very punchable faces, and it's like cool. I'll take it. So it's fine. We can roll with it. I'd say the second thing, like here's what I'll say: if random people on crypto Twitter think I'm an asshole, I'm okay with that. You got to have a tough skin to survive in crypto. If entrepreneurs think I'm an asshole, then I got a problem and I need to fix it. So that to me, that's the North Star: is what are the people who work with me, or the people who potentially want to work with me, how do they think I'm doing? As long as they're happy with me, I feel good. But you can't please people all the time, especially not on crypto. You're always gonna be pissing off somebody. So that's just kind of the name of the game.
Yeah, that's the signal. Everything else is just noise coming from everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
and then any contrarian takes stablecoins and regulation in the current era.
and the on-chain price discovery kind of like tied in there. But I think you mostly just addressed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So with on-chain price discovery, I'm a little more circumspect about on-chain price discovery than you are. So with on-chain price discovery, two things. One is that we've seen this before. When did we see it before? The answer, you said it earlier, DeFi summer, right? DeFi summer, everything was launching on chain. There were these IDOs and Uniswap launches, and that was the first place that everything listed. And you really wanted the alpha, you had to go buy it on chain, right? And I think these are usually a sign of not necessarily like, oh my God, now everything's being democratized. It's usually a sign of like, oh, there's a new speculative frenzy, and like the game is you got to be the first. And to be the first means you got to be on chain to go grab it early before it gets listed, right? And that being said, like folks like yourselves, you have the alpha, and you're advising a lot of your listeners to like go get the alpha, which is go buy it before it gets listed. But I don't think it's okay, great, now everything's democratized and these things are never get listed. You're buying it early because you want it to list on Binance, you want it to list on Coinbase, and when it does, it's going to rip. Right? Because it's going to get access to a new layer of retail that's getting in later than you are. So, when it gets the up-it listing, it's like, yo, I told you to get it on chain, props to your boy. So I don't think it's,
yeah, I mean,
I don't think you're hoping that these things never get listed.
Yeah, I know exactly. I mean, it gives the common folk, if you will. I know you're in the ivory tower of Dragonfly, but it gives the common folk.
No, that's option. What I'm saying. Look, the common folk. You're not the common folk, my friend. You run a fucking podcast. You've got 50,000 followers. You're not a common folk, right? The common folk are the people who are buying on
Binance. Yeah,
those are the common folk. Those are the common folk.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree. I mean, look, it is ultimately markets are zero sum. Crypto is positive sum in the world, but I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think that is a bit of that is a bit of a reality check.
So I'm just tempering. I'm tempering your statement.
It is a bit of a reality check.
That being said, I'm a DeFi bull. I love fucking DeFi. I'd love to see more price discovery on chain. We're investors in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I also think that CeFi clearly has a huge role.
Yeah.
It is the connective tissue with the old world and where people have most of their money. Most people don't live on chain yet. And until they do live on chain, CeFi is really important to actually get people to get their money into this ecosystem. So I don't think we should be shitting on it. I think it's a really important part of what makes this whole system work. But it's kind of like, I don't know. It's again, to give another tortured example, it's kind of like AOL. If I'm dating myself to like way back in the day, AOL for many people was the first way they got online. AOL, for those of you who are not American, AOL is America Online, which was this service that brought a ton of people online back in the 90s and early 2000s. And, there was kind of a walled garden that a lot of people would live on these AOL chat rooms, and they thought AOL was the internet. And of course it wasn't. There was much more to do outside of just AOL, but AOL was really important for getting people online and getting them their first kind of training wheels experience with the internet. And that's kind of what exchanges are. To many people, they think exchanges are crypto. And you ask them like, oh, do you interact with Ethereum? And they're like, yeah. I buy ETH on Coinbase. And they're like, no, that's not Ethereum. Ethereum is like a whole platform. That's okay. That's totally okay. It's completely fine that people's first experiences with Coinbase, maybe later their next experience will be Coinbase Wallet. and then maybe eventually they'll like, get further and further upstream into like the craziness that you and I live in. But you got to let them do it at their own pace.
Yeah, I mean,
not everybody's going to start in the deep end of the pool.
It's very clear that on-chain price discovery benefits those who are on-chain. I mean, that is a very clear, objective reality. So have to kind of like temper your.
But importantly, and here's where I totally agree with you, is that it lowers the cost to entry.
Yes.
So because there's now on-chain price discovery,
you have a phantom wallet
to pay a listing fee.
You have $100 of SOL as an average Joe or as a project. You can spin up and go, and you can have a community.
Exactly.
And so that is I think that is probably more exciting. That's the more exciting part. Obviously, getting in early and then dumping on people is like, that's how markets work, unfortunately. But it's actually fortunate because it's a mature form of value creation and value pricing. However, I mean, the reality is getting in early on-chain, dumping on sexes is kind of like what people want to do. But I think it's actually launching projects and then having anybody with a bit of SOL or a bit of ETH can participate early. Like you would on your Ventures arm, or like I would on our Ventures arm for a project that is like, raising. It's almost similar for almost a similar level playing field. However, there is cabals, there is on-chain cabals times. It's worse than the VCs.
Always.
It's worse.
And the same thing is exchanges, right? And like all that shit.
It's always going to exist.
Being on-chain,
humans are humans.
Being on-chain doesn't solve any of that.
No, humans are humans.
Any of that. It just makes it more visible. So the last point that I'll make, and I'll wrap with this. I didn't get to all your questions, but whatever. I'll give you one last thing at the end. So I made the point earlier that I thought AI was going to be deflationary, right? And that it was going to massively lower the costs such that people won't need to raise millions of dollars in order to go write some smart contracts and deploy it on chain. And in the same way, one thing that DEXs do is they make it so that people don't have to pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars and go, do all this bullshit to get listed on Binance or Coinbase in order to get their token traded and to get a holder base. You can just go on Uniswap, you can go on Radium, and boom, even if 20 people want to buy your token, you have 20 holders now, and that wasn't possible in a pre-exchange world, in a pre-DeFi world. So those things are real improvements. Now, one thing that you might think, given my description, is that, okay, well, doesn't that put a VC out of a job? If you don't need to go raise money to get listed, and you don't need to go raise money to write smart contracts, and you don't need to raise money to do, all this stuff just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, then doesn't that mean that VCs, okay, well, it's kind of done. Now it's just, it's going to be retail investors and people just,
toss AI in there as well,
on Radium.
You've got yourself
your AI is going to do all this shit for you. And why do you need VCs? And I think, to me, the answer is clearly no. Now, why do I say that? Is because think about the internet. Think about actually the business you guys run, the roll-up, right? You guys have a website, you guys have podcasts, you guys have, all the stuff you guys run, your own community. If you rewind the clock back to, let's say, early 2000s, right? In the early 2000s, if you wanted to launch a website, you needed to buy your own server, and you needed to have your server at home, which, very expensive investment to buy a server. And you run your server and you manage it and you do the upkeep yourself. You probably have to go hire a sysadmin and let them SSH into your server so they can run it, because it's very difficult to administrate a server at that point in time. And that's the startup cost to just run the kind of business you guys are running. If you just want like a normal fucking website and a chat room, you have to buy $20,000 of hardware and pay a sysadmin to run it for you, right? And with the advent of cloud computing, and infrastructure as a service and platform as a service and all this stuff getting automated, and no code and Discord and blah blah blah, all this stuff. Now, what did you guys need to get started? Probably $100 in order to start your company, right? That's all it really took to just have a website, a Twitter account, a Discord, all this stuff that used to cost $20,000 startup cost now costs almost nothing, right? Now you might ask the question of, okay, well, does this mean that VCs are out of a job? No, the answer is fucking no. Of course not. VCs still have jobs because there's still going to be really difficult moonshot projects that are capital intensive. But the capital now doesn't get spent on stupid shit that's really easy now, right? It's nobody is going to pay you. You would not want to sell equity because, we need to buy a server and pay a sysadmin to run a server for the roll-up, right? Imagine you had to sell 20% of your equity to do that shit. No, that's a worse world, right? It's a better world if you're look, I want to scale the roll-up up and build a much bigger media empire and do all this other stuff. And for that, I do need capital. That is where a financier, a VC, whatever, makes sense. And there will always be ambitious projects that want to do something bigger than just the thing that's been deflated down because it's gotten cheaper, right? So yeah, I'm very happy that as a VC, my money's not going to be going towards, paying millions of dollars for, fucking
smart contract audits. Yeah.
All this other stuff.
Shit,
Smart
devs,
contract, yeah, exactly. Like all this
yeah.
stuff. The cost of all this stuff will go down. Great. I didn't want to be spending my money on that.
Yep.
But there will still be projects that are capital intensive and require big moonshot things. And of course, there are some things that the spending is zero sum, right? If you want to buy attention, the cost of attention is not going to go down. If anything, it might actually go up. And so these kinds of things that you're going to be paying money for, the opportunity cost of other people, they're not going to change. And so those things are where your money will be going, and not towards the things that are going to be collapsing in cost. So it's not as though post cloud computing, startups are now incredibly cheap and nobody pays any money to anything, and everything, you can build companies for, $100. You can launch the software stuff for $100, but the rest of it still costs money. And the same thing is going to be true in a post AI world for crypto startups.
Wow. Well, we'll let you know if we're ever raising Haseeb. We need like 20,000 AI agents, so I'm not sure if we can afford that right now. All right.
Pretty good. That'll probably be affordable for you guys by the time it's ready. I believe in you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. It's been a fun conversation.
My pleasure, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Haseeb.